Licensing panel on Friday, the 22nd of September. Before we start, I want to apologise for the setup of the room. It seems somewhat courtly, but we had training, so it hasn't been changed. It's not been done like that on purpose. So, moving on to the agenda, item 1, to receive apologies for absence, I have none. To receive the declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. I have none, thank you. I'm going to read the bold text now. The procedure the licensing panel will follow in considering the application is set out in the Licensing Act 2003, its attendant regulations, and was agreed by the Licensing Committee on the 2nd of February 2005. The licensing panel, in accordance with Rule 14 of the Licensing Act 2003, Hearings Regulation 2005, decide to exclude the public from all or part of the hearing where the licensing panel considers that it is in the public interest to do so. We're moving on, and I would like to ask all of you actually to introduce yourselves, if I may. I'm Julie Mockford. I am chairing this meeting.
I'm Anne Eves. I'm a ward councillor from Burgess Hill.
I'm Karen Wood. I'm a ward councillor from Lindfield.
Good morning, I'm Lucy Corrie. I'm Assistant Director for Communities and Licensing is under my remit.
Good morning, I'm John Bryant, the Senior Licensing Officer, presenting the report to the panel today.
I'm Peter Aston from Trading Standards and I'm the applicant.
Alex Green, Goschalk Solicitors on behalf of the premises licence holder.
James Coomber, Regional Technical Manager for Morrison's.
Morning, Stuart Frost, Area Manager for Morrison's.
Good morning, George Zamelo, Licensing Manager for the applicant. Sorry, for the license holder.
Thank you. No more of that, that's lovely. May I ask John Bryant to do the introduction and outline the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members, the matter before yourselves this morning is an application to review a premises licence under the Licensing Act of 2003. The report before you provides information in order for you to determine the review application submitted by West Sussex Trading Standards. In summary, an application which is attached in full at Appendix 1, pursuant to Section 51 of the Licensing Act, has been made by West Sussex Trading Standards for a review of a premises licence at Morrison's Daily, Church Road, Copthorne, West Sussex. The grounds for the review relate to the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder and the protection of children from harm. And the review cites the sale of alcohol to a child during the test purchase operation conducted by Trading Standards on the 8th of February this year. It also details the further inquiries that were made into the incident, and two other responsible authorities, Sussex Police and West Sussex County Council Public Health, have also submitted representations in support of this application. The panel must determine this matter on the evidence presented to it during the hearing, having due regard to the Licensing Act 2003, the Mid-Sussex District Council licensing policy, and the Home Office guidance which is issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act. Some background for the panel is the premises concerned is located at Church Road, Copthorne. It's currently known as Morrison's Daily. It's been licensed for the sale of consumption of alcohol off the premises since November 2005. And prior to this date, the premises benefited from a Justice's licence issued under the previous Licensing Act. The premises licence was transferred to the current premises holder, which is Alliance Property Holdings, on the 10th of May, when the premises prior to that was formerly known as McColl's. At the time of the incidents referred to within the application, the designated premises supervisor was a Sarah Mahoney. She was employed at a different branch within the company at the time and not permanently located at the store. The DPS has been changed on the 4th of August this year to a Mr. Andrew Vickers. The current premises licence is attached in full at Appendix 2, and the premises is currently licensed for the sale of retail of alcohol for consumption off of the premises, Monday to Saturday, 8 AM till 11 PM, and Sunday, 10 AM till 10:30 PM. I've also set out the opening hours for the premises, which are consistent with the sale of alcohol hours. The premises itself is a convenience store located within Cockthorne Village, and there are photos of the store for the panel attached at Appendix 3. There are currently no additional conditions attached to the licence, in addition to the mandatory licence conditions. The review before the panel today is from West Sussex Trading Standards, and it's based on the sale of alcohol to a child that took place during a test purchasing operation that they conducted on the 8th of February this year. They cite that they received information regarding underage sales of alcohol and vapes, and an advice visit was made to the store in August 2022. There they spoke to the manager at that time at the store, which was a Ms. Kirsty East, regarding the sale of age-restricted products, provided advice to ensure staff were correctly trained, and provided a copy of the advice. On the 8th of February this year, staff at the store sold alcohol during the test purchase operation to a child. When the Trading Standards officers spoke to the staff member concerned, they stated that they had received training the previous week but did not know what the Think 25 policy was or what the refusals log was. On the 22nd of May, further questions were put by Trading Standards to a representative of the company, but there was no response. And they detailed that further attempts were made on the 9th of June when they were informed that by the current store manager that Ms. East no longer worked for Morrison's Daily. He confirmed that he had received the additional questions and would reply in the next 7 working days. On the 12th of June, the manager called Trading Standards and explained that the member of staff who failed the test purchase had been fired and the matter had been sorted. He was asked to respond to the questions that were put forward, but there was no further response from him, leading up to the submission of the application to the review of the premises licence. Trading Standards state that in view of the sale and subsequent lack of engagement from the business, from their response to contact them, they do not believe that the licensing objectives are being continually upheld, and there was a failure of the management to promote the licensing objectives. And therefore they consider that a review of the premises licence is necessary to limit further criminal activity and act as a deterrent against such illegal conduct. They go on to suggest that as the continued sale or supply of alcohol by the premises holder in the circumstances outlined above would potentially be a breach of the licensing objectives, and the premises has demonstrated a particular failure in its ongoing responsibilities to protect children from harm. Bearing in mind underage advice had been provided before the sale of alcohol was made, they suggest that an appropriate outcome would be a 3-month suspension of the premises licence. I have attached full details of the Trading Standards investigation to the report at Appendix 4. Sussex Police have submitted representations in support of the application on the same grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and protection of children from harm, and their representations in full are attached to Appendix 5. In their representation, they state they're particularly concerned that in this case, alcohol was sold to a child during the test purchase exercise. They note that prior to the test purchase, advice was given to the management, and this advice revolved around underage sales of alcohol. They also recommend to the committee that they consider a suspension period appropriate in this case. Sussex Police also invite the committee to update the current premises licence by adding modern conditions to it. Now, to update on the report, since the report was written, there has been a large number of inquiries between the police, the premises licence holders, solicitor, in respect of the conditions, and also with Trading Standards. And you will find that I have provided a revised Appendix 6 to yourselves, which details the conditions which have been agreed by the parties involved. It may well be that the premises licence holder solicitor will refer to this in more detail in their submissions to you. But as I say, I can confirm that these have been agreed by the parties making the representations and the premises licence holder. West Sussex County Council Public Health have submitted representations in support of the application, again on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and the protection of children from harm. These are attached in full at Appendix 7. They outline that the sale of alcohol to children is of extreme concern, considering the strong evidence demonstrating the harms caused by alcohol to children and young people. They also highlight the advice visit that the premises received from two Trade and Standards officers, and they note that despite the member of staff confirming that they'd received training, he was unable to explain the Challenge 25 policy. They also state that the fact he was also completely unaware of a refusals log demonstrates staff training that the premises was insufficient to uphold the licensing objectives. They also make comment on the fact that representatives from the company, up to the time that the review was submitted, hadn't responded to the questions put forward by Trade and Standards during the Trade and Standards investigation. Given the serious nature of the offence, they state, and the harm caused to children by alcohol, they state that this suggests that the premises is not taking seriously the responsibilities to uphold the licensing objectives. They also invited the committee to consider additional conditions, and these were included in the agreed conditions which you now have before you in the amended appendix. Their full representation, as I stated earlier, is attached for yourself at Appendix 7. Now, in the legal context, a review has been applied for under Section 51 of the Licensing Act, and I would invite that if the panel have any questions regarding the legal context of the application, to refer to Mr. Mountney, the solicitor of the panel. The licensing objectives. The Licensing Act 2003 requires representations to address the four licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, the promotion of public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the prevention of harm to children and young persons. The panel will see that within the report I've highlighted various sections of the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act, which I know the panel are familiar with. I would just highlight one or two of these to the panel during my presentation. Licensing authorities should give considerable weight to representations about child protection matters. In addition, the responsible authority whose functions relate directly to child protection, the Director of Public Health, may also have access to relevant evidence to inform such representations. These representations may include, amongst other things, the use of health data about the harms alcohol can cause to underage drinkers, and where a responsible authority or other person presents evidence to a licensing authority linking specific premises with harms to children, this evidence should be considered, and the licensing authority should also consider what action is appropriate to ensure this licensing objective is effectively enforced. In Section 11.9 of the guidance, responsible authorities or other persons may make representations in respect of an application to review a premises licence. They must be relevant, i.e. relate to one or more of the licence objectives. Representations may be made in writing or may be amplified at the subsequent hearing or may stand in their own right. Additional representations which do not amount to an amplification of the original representation may not be made at the hearing. At 11.10, where authorised persons and responsible authorities have concerns about problems identified at the premises, it is good practice for them to give licence holders early warning of their concerns and the need for improvement. And where possible, they should advise the licence or certificate holder of the steps they need to take to address those concerns. A failure by the holder to respond to such warnings is expected to lead to a decision to apply for a review. Cooperation at a local level in promoting the licensing objectives should be encouraged, and reviews should not be used to undermine this cooperation. And at 11.16, it outlines the 2003 Act provides a range of powers for the licensing authority, which it may exercise on determining a review where it considers them appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The licensing authority may decide that the review does not require it to take any further steps appropriate to promoting the licensing objectives. In addition, there's nothing to prevent a licensing authority, issuing an informal warning to the licence holder and or to recommend improvement within a particular period of time. It is, however, expected that the licensing authorities will regard such informal warnings as an important mechanism that the licensing objectives are effectively promoted, and warnings should be issued in writing to the licence holder. It goes on to state, though, however, where responsible authorities, such as the police and environmental health officers, have already issued warnings requiring improvement, either orally or in writing, and they've failed as part of their own stepped approach to address concerns, licensing authorities should not merely repeat that approach and should take this into account when considering what further action is appropriate. And where the licensing authority considers that action under its statutory powers are appropriate, it may take any of the following steps. Modify the conditions of the premises licence, which includes adding new conditions or alteration or omission of an existing condition. As I've previously outlined, there are a set of conditions which have been agreed by all parties for the panel to consider. The panel may exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence. They may remove the designated premises supervisor, for example, because the problems are as a result of poor management. In respect of this, I would point out that the DPS at the premises has subsequently changed since the incident itself. They may suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, or they may revoke the licence. However, in deciding which of these powers to invoke, it is expected that the licensing authorities should, so far as possible, seek to establish the cause or causes of the concerns that the representations identify, and the remedial action taken should generally be directed at these causes and should always be no more than appropriate and a proportionate response to address the causes of the concern that instigated the review. To conclude, within the guidance, they state there's certain criminal activity which may arise in connection with licensed premises, which should be treated particularly seriously. And that particular section goes on to outline the illegal purchase and consumption of alcohol by minors, which impacts on the health, educational, attainment, employment prospects, and propensity for crime of young people. And it states that it is envisaged that licensing authorities, the police, Home Office, immigration enforcement and other law enforcement agencies, which are responsible authorities, will use the review procedures effectively to deter such activities and crime. And where reviews arise and the licensing authority determines that the crime prevention objective is being undermined through the premises being used to further crimes, it is expected that the revocation of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered. The rest of the report outlines the other options, the financial implications, and also the background papers. I will briefly take the panel through the appendices. As already stated, Appendix 1 is application for review from trading standards. At Appendix 2, you will see the current premises licence. At Appendix 3, I have supplied some photographs of the premises to give some context to the panel. Obviously, the first photograph is the front of the store. The next photograph shows the serving counter with the spirits located behind the counter. It shows the cooler cabinet, which is located to the right-hand side of the counter as you're standing inside the counter. There is a further alcohol display set back from the side of the counter, and there are 2 further alcohol displays within the store. The following appendices are the supporting evidence supplied by Trading Standards. There is also the representation from Sussex Police. You have the revised Appendix 6 in front of yourselves, and we also have Appendix 7, the representation from West Sussex Public Health. There's one other item which I have forwarded to the panel, which was kindly supplied by the premises licence holder solicitor, which gives yourselves a timeline as to the actions which have been carried out by the premises licence holder since the incident came to their notice. And I'm sure the premises licence holder solicitor will take you through that in due course. That's the matter before yourselves this morning, and obviously I'm available if there are any questions concerning the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryant. Have we got any questions for Mr. Bryant? Okay. Could I invite Peter Ashton from West Sussex Trading Standards to direct questions to the licensing officer if you have any?
Thank you, Chair. No questions.
Thank you. We haven't got any. So may I invite you, Mr. Ashton, to make your representation?
Thank you, Chair. West Sussex County Council Trading Standards have instigated a standard review of the premise licence under Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003, and we respectfully invite the Licensing Authority Committee to review the premise licence of Alliance Property Holdings, trading as Morrison's Daily, and determine if it is appropriate to revoke or suspend the licence, invoke specific conditions to the current licence, or remove the DPS. Trading Standards believe this premises is undermining the licensing objectives regarding the prevention of crime and disorder, the protection of children from harm. Trading Standards' purpose for making the review application is to ensure the breaches of relevant legislation are brought to the attention of the Licensing Committee in order for them to consider the matter fully and consider available options. As the committee may be aware, as far back as October 2021, West Sussex County Council issued a press release warning businesses there would be a county-wide crackdown on underage sales following a previous test purchase operation where 9 out of 16 shops tested sold alcohol and cigarettes to children. There's also been significant press coverage about the impact of our work since then relating to many licensed premises across the county and specifically in Mid-Sussex, including AO Food and Wine in Burgess Hill and K&A Enterprise Hayward Heath, whose licence was revoked. There's also been a number of revocations linked to underage sales to children across the county, but they have also involved other criminal activity, and these have subsequently not been reported upon. Unfortunately, the sale of restricted products to children, particularly vapes, has continued, and we took the decision in January 2022 to instigate a zero tolerance policy in respect of the sale of alcohol to children. In short, this states that West Sussex Trading Standards has a zero tolerance policy to the sale of alcohol to children, and where we have sufficient evidence to show this has taken place, we will seek a review of the business alcohol licence with the aim of having the licence suspended or revoked unless there are exceptional circumstances. The seller and businesses will also be subject to enforcement action in line with our published enforcement policy. This approach would be following the business having been fully advised previously by way of a personal visit with the owner, director, and the advice being followed up in writing. As part of this policy, we agreed that the following steps would be taken. We would engage with the alcohol licence review process to assist in tackling the illegal supply of tobacco, alcohol, vapes and other restricted products to children. Conduct intelligence-led test purchasing operations. In my experience, this intel usually comes directly or indirectly from concerned parents, residents, school teachers, the police or affected businesses in the community. And as part of our approach, all reported instances are followed up. We give robust advice to businesses who are reported to us as selling age-restricted products to children, and we take appropriate and proportionate enforcement action. We utilise zero tolerance messaging around the underage sales of alcohol to children, and this policy is also reflected in the Trading Standards published enforcement policy. Unfortunately and frustratingly, intelligence report to Trading Standards of businesses selling restricted products in mid-Sussex and across the county to children appears to have escalated despite the efforts of Trading Standards and the police. This is having a significant impact on our resources as well as Mid-Sussex District Council's own resources. As the committee will be aware, the illegal sale of vapes to children is of particular concern, with new evidence coming to light that exposure to chemicals found in some vapes can affect the central nervous system and brain development in children. Also, members may have seen Panorama's programme a few weeks ago, which focused on the effect of vaping was having on children. But in respect of this specific matter, during April 2022, the responsible authority received an intelligence report alleging that Alliance Properties Holdings, trading as Morrison's Daily at Copthorne, sold alcohol and vapes to children. This information was passed to us by your licensing team and originated from Copthorne's Police Community Support Officer. The officer named this premise as one of two that were selling alcohol and elf bars to underage kids, and that this was extremely rife at the Copthorne Carnival. He also stated that he intervened and that another PCSO also witnessed them selling underage kids e-cigarettes. Under the Children and Families Act 2014, it is a criminal offence to sell a nicotine inhaling product, that is a vape, to a person under the age of 18. Following receipt of this information, a trading standards officer from the responsible authority made an appointment with the manager of Morrison's Daily, Miss Kirsty East, to visit on the 5th of August 2022. On the 5th of August 22, two trading standards officers conducted a visit in relation to Morrison's Daily at Copthorne regarding the allegations selling age-restricted products. Several points around the age-restricted products and training were discussed during the advice visit with Miss East. Both trading standards officers checked training records that were online, till prompts and refusals logs were checked. The refusal log was stored on the business EPOS system. Miss East read and signed the report that was filled out by the trading standards officers, and a copy was given to her. This confirmed she was specifically warned that a test purchase would be made, and if they failed, their alcohol licence could be revoked. On the 8th of August, a follow-up advice letter was sent, reiterating the advice that was discussed with Miss East. This also set out our zero tolerance policy and also further warned that selling restricted products could result in suspension or revocation of the alcohol licence. On the 8th of February 2023, as part of an underage sales operation, the responsible authority were carrying out that day a 17-year-old child volunteer, under the instruction and supervision of the officers from the responsible authority, entered Morrison's Daily. The child volunteer selected one bottle of WKD Blue Alco Pop and took it to the till. A male working behind the till area did not look up once at the volunteer until he had asked for payment and if the volunteer was paying by cash or card. The male sold the bottle of WKD Blue to the child volunteer without asking them for any identification. After securing the bottle of WKD Blue as evidence, trading standards officers immediately returned to the shop to explain to the seller about the test purchase and take all necessary and relevant information to instigate an investigation. Under caution, the seller, Mr. Felgate, stated the volunteer looked 19 or 20 years old. Mr. Felgate explained that he'd started working at Morrison's Daily and it has been approximately 2 weeks since he had started. Mr. Felgate said that he had training 1 week prior and the training was written training and watching videos. The seller said he also had to sign paperwork confirming his training. When the seller was asked about the Think 25 policy, he could not remember. It was then explained to him by a trading standards officer. The seller was asked about any refusals logs, to which he said he did not know what it was, and he was never written anything down, but it may be recorded electronically. Mr. Felgate explained that the alcohol was sold to the underage volunteer because he did not think to ask for identification. On the 22nd of May 2023, further questions were put to the responsible authority, to a representative for the company. The manager, Miss Kirsty East, did not respond to the questions that were put forward. Several attempts of contact were made to Morrison's Daily, and on the 9th of June 2023, Trading Standards Officer called Morrison's Daily and spoke to a manager called Mr. Moe. Mr. Moe explained that Miss East did not work at Morrison's anymore. Mr. Moe confirmed they received Miss East's questions and that he would respond in the next 7 working days. On the 12th of June 2023, Mr. Moe called the Trading Standards Officer investigating the case and explained that Mr. Felgate was fired and it had been sorted. The Trading Standards Officer asked Mr. Moe to respond to the questions that were put forward and to respond in writing. There was no response from Morrison's Daily until this application review was made on the 8th of August 23. under section 146 of the Licensing Act 2003, it is a criminal offence to sell alcohol to a child under the age of 18 years old. It is contended the sale of alcohol to an underage person in the circumstances outlined is a breach of the licensing objective, the protection of children from harm. The licensee has failed in their responsibilities to promote the licensing objectives. In consideration of review of this premise licence, the committee has reminded that a second licensing objective, the prevention of crime and disorder, has also been failed by the commission of the criminal offence that took place on the 8th of February 2023. In view of the sale of alcohol to a child and the subsequent lack of engagement from the business in response to our contact with them, the responsible authority did not believe the licensing objectives were being continually upheld at Alliance Property Holdings, trading as Morrison's Daily, and deem it both proportionate and necessary to invite the committee to consider a review of the premise licence to limit further criminal activity by this licence holder, and to act as a deterrent to other operators considering such illegal conduct. I would also like to draw to the attention of the subcommittee the LGA Handbook on Licensing Act 2003, which states the primary purpose of a review is to act as a deterrent to prevent further breaches. It can also prevent any licensable activities which are causing concern from happening in future. The purpose of a prosecution is punitive, and for licensing offences, a review with a threat of revocation or suspension can often be more of a deterrent. Further reason in bringing this review is the Home Office revised guidance of the Licensing Act, which was updated in August 2023. On the protection of children from harm, the guidance makes it the following points. The protection from harm includes the protection of children from moral, physiological and physical harm. This includes not only protecting children from the harms associated directly with alcohol consumption, but also wider harms. Licensing authorities must also consider the need to protect children from sexual exploitation when undertaking licensing functions. 2.28, the government believes that it is completely unacceptable to sell alcohol to children. Licensing authorities should also give considerable weight to representations about child protection matters. 11.10, where authorised persons and responsible authorities have concerns about problems identified at premises, it is good practice for them to give licence holders early warning of their concerns and the need for improvement, and where possible they should advise the licence holder of the steps they need to take to address those concerns, which Trading Standards did in this case by way of a visit by appointment with the manager and subsequently followed up in writing. A failure by the holder to respond to such warnings is expected to lead to a decision to apply for the review. On reviews arising in connection with crime, the guidance makes 3 points. 11.27, there is certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises which should be treated particularly seriously. And these are the use of the licensed premises for the illegal purchase and consumption of alcohol by minors, which impacts on the health, education, attainment, employment prospects and propensity for crime with young people. 11.28, it is envisaged that the licensing authorities, the police, the Home Office and other law enforcement agencies which are responsible authorities will use the review procedures effectively to deter such activities and crime. Where reviews arise and the licensing authority determines that the crime prevention objectives is being undermined through the premises being used for further crimes, it is expected that revocation of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered. In conclusion, it's contended that the sale of alcohol by the premises in the circumstances outlined in my report is a breach of the licensing objectives, and the premises has failed in its responsibilities to protect children from harm. In considering a review of the premise licence, the committee are also reminded of a second licensing objective, prevention of crime and disorder, which has been failed by the commission of the criminal offence, as I've outlined. I'm sure that the company will blame the individual employees involved, but there also needs to be some responsibility taken by senior officers and managers of the company, who clearly had no oversight of what was happening in the store, that the training was inadequate and procedures were not being followed. Morrison's Daily is a large and well-resourced national business, and I believe the committee should be particularly concerned by the failings highlighted in my report. Therefore, an underage prevention advice has been provided before the sale of alcohol was made to our child volunteer. The responsible authority suggests an appropriate outcome of review would be a 3-month suspension of the licence, which would be both consistent and proportionate in line with other small businesses that have come before this committee recently. The responsible authority believes this would send out a strong message across Mid-Sussex and the county that where premises are found to be undermining licensing objectives, particularly about child protection matters, consistent and robust sanctions are administered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bryant, do you have any questions?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Just one, Chair, if you don't mind. Mr. Aston, thank you for obviously a comprehensive report there. Back in May, if the manager, just a very quick question, if the manager at the time had escalated the request for information that they'd received, escalated it upwards, and you'd been provided with a timely response, and you'd been given all the information you required to your satisfaction, and there were no further action needed in effect at that time, it's possible, is it, that we wouldn't be sat here today?
No, as I've outlined, it is our policy. We have a zero tolerance policy in respect of the sale of alcohol to children, and we will, as in line with our policy, we'll undertake a review of the alcohol licence.
Panel members, do we have any questions? Thank you.
I'm not sure if Mr. Ashton's the right person to answer this, but do we know if Mr. Felgate was alone in the shop when the offence committed? Was there any other manager present?
Sorry, Chair, I don't know that.
We don't. Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the representatives of the premises licence holder to make your representation, if I may.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have a very quick question, just a kind of point of order, really? Are we having a summing up? And I don't know if this is for you, Chair, or for Nathan. Is there a summing up a situation here, or do you want me to do anything?
There is a summing up, yeah, I believe that's at the bottom of the chair's
Just checking.
order of, well, I was about to say order of service, run order there, so yeah, no worries.
Order of service,
Sorry.
okay.
That's another hat I wear another
Yeah.
time, so sorry.
Oops. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Nathan. Right, so firstly, on behalf of Alliance Property Holdings Limited, Morrison's, of course, we would like to apologise. We'd like to apologise to Mr. Aston as to why we're here today. We'd like to apologise, obviously, to the police and public health, and of course to the committee. We don't hide from this. Obviously, we're here in number to hold our hands up as to what happened back in February. So who's the premises licence holder? Well, Alliance Property Holdings Limited, I suppose that's just a kind of a neutral name. It's Morrison's. Morrison's took over the McCall's chain, 1,200 approximately last year, smaller convenience stores. And after some monopolies and mergers issues over the course of 2022, mainly this year, the Morrison's name and values are starting to be introduced into these smaller convenience stores. And as we've already heard, I won't tell you where the store is. You know where it is and what the store is all about. So why we're here today? Well, as we've already heard, one of the primary reasons we're here today is that following on from the failed test purchase, the manager of the store failed to respond to the correspondence received from Trading Standards. They received this correspondence over 3 months after the failed test purchase took place. The manager was given ample opportunity to escalate the matter internally. For some inexplicable reason, they didn't. Again, we apologise for that. Whether he claimed to be busy, whether he misplaced the paperwork, I don't know. There is, of course, no criticism of Trading Standards here. They asked for questions to be answered. And despite chasing and ringing this chap, he didn't escalate this. It could have been resolved at that time very quickly. He didn't escalate it like he was told to do, like he should have done, of course. So, the timeline, John has mentioned the timeline in his detailed introduction. I won't go through line by line the timeline, but hopefully you've seen a copy of it. Obviously, as we know, we've heard 8th of February, a new member of staff sold alcohol to an under 18 as part of a Trading Standards test purchase operation. After the failed test purchase, as you can see, there was a comprehensive response by my client on a national, local level. Meetings were held with the licensing authority. John was on site, training, retraining. The manager, the member of staff who sold the alcohol was investigated, suspended and then dismissed. Additional age-related training was issued to all the staff members. A number of what's called Serve Legal. I don't know if you're familiar with Serve Legal. It's a kind of independent test purchase company. A number of Serve Legal third-party test purchases took place and they all passed. So initially, there was a big response and we were, talking with the licensing authority and we were dealing with how to respond and what's needed. And I believe at the time we thought everything was okay, despite this horrible error that took place in February. So 3 months later, approximately just over, Trading Standards sent some correspondence addressed to the previous manager, I think who had left in the end of the 2022, requesting answers to a number of questions as part of the follow-up to the failed test purchase. They followed it up, to be fair, the Trading Standards followed up by phone, spoke to the then manager, Mr. Mo Rani. He assured Trading Standards that the questions would be answered within 7 days. Again, this didn't happen. He didn't escalate it to head office and he didn't respond to Trading Standards. So here we are, Trading Standards in August, submit review papers. They obviously at the end of their tether, they'd asked for a response to these questions as a follow-up and they didn't get a response. So there we are. There the review papers were lodged, I think on about the 2nd of August. I think 2nd, 3rd of August, my client obviously was made aware straight away of the review. I telephoned Peter personally just to try and introduce myself and just to discuss what's happened and just to say we're on the case. Head office now know about it, and I think I left a message. We spoke anyway a few days later, and we kind of established who we were and what's going to happen from here type thing. The store was visited by regional compliance teams straight away to investigate what was going on, to find out. Basically, it really did put the cat amongst the pigeons here because we didn't know anything about this. The last thing that head office knew about this was we'd had meetings and everything at the time had been trained, retrained. The guy who did it wasn't there. So to get these review papers was a surprise, and obviously the response was a detailed response. The manager was investigated for this non-escalation. Action plans were discussed. Compliance teams came in, area managers, regional managers, more served, legal test purchases took place, all passed. The Trading Standards questions that for whatever reason were not answered were answered by the National Compliance Manager and I think Peter and her, they spoke. Full audit of the store took place, and subsequently the manager was investigated on the back of this, and disciplinary was lined up, and he resigned. So the manager who didn't escalate the questions is no longer at the store. So the member of staff who sold the alcohol is no longer at the store. The staff at the store have had training, retraining on age-restricted products. The manager who was solely responsible for the non-escalation of the query is no longer at the store. My client's operation teams and compliance teams have visited the store and almost on a daily basis, spending hours every day at the store. Everything has been done to ensure, as far as we can see, everything that's being done to ensure this sort of thing doesn't and cannot happen again. As far as the representations are concerned, we've heard already, Public Health puts a supporting representation in asking for a couple of conditions, and they were agreed instantly. The police, as John alluded to, we've had probably somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 emails and conversations with the police, just trying to tweak a couple of CCTV conditions just on an operational basis. But basically, all the police in our conversations, the police were clear. They just wanted their conditions putting in because there were no conditions and they needed conditions. This to stop this sort of thing happening again. Pages and pages of conditions. They've all been agreed. Everything's fine. We had a couple of back and forths about CCTV, but everything's agreed with the police. All there in the pack for you to see, but the comprehensive CCTV, instant log, even a risk-assessed door staff policy if it transpires that it's needed late at night, for example, or if there was a big event going on like a carnival or whatever. detailed training in Challenge 25, age-restricted products, etc., etc. Training standards, yeah, we reached out to Peter on a few occasions, and Peter got back to us yesterday with a couple of amendments to the police conditions, and we agreed those within 30 minutes of the request. And it was just about making I think it was Challenge 25 for age-restricted products, not just alcohol. Is that correct, Peter? Correct. Yeah, thank you. So, you know, we're trying to demonstrate that once it hit home on a kind of national level and a regional level, once we found out about it, we're trying to do everything we can to demonstrate how seriously, as a company, as a premises licence holder, we're taking it. We're not shirking from the responsibility. We are visiting and visiting and visiting, training, retraining, serve legal, test purchasing. We've agreed all these conditions, and we're just trying to demonstrate to the committee that we are taking it very seriously. We hold our hands up as to what happened in February, and those are my submissions on behalf of the premises licence holder. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Peter, do you have any questions?
No, just one question, and that was regards to Callum Wells. He was aware of the situation on the 15th of the 2nd, 2023, and he's what position is he in the company?
I believe Callum is a regional compliance and risk.
Regional.
Sorry.
Callum is a regional compliance specialist.
So yeah, just the question for me is, you know, if he was made aware of this situation back in February, how was it not escalated to the head office that this event had occurred?
Well, am I okay to answer, Chair? Is that okay? You happy for me to say? Well, I think I understand the question. I mean, in February we were very much aware of the failed test purchase because everything kicked into place. If John will confirm, John had meetings on site. Everything was everybody knew about the failed test purchase, and the response back in February, as far as I can see, was quite comprehensive. John was on site, we had meetings, we had refresher training, we had serve legal, we dealt with the disciplinary. As far as I could see, everything in February, around the time of this failed test purchase, everything that should have potentially took place, took place. And I'm not aware of any criticism, and I can't see any criticism of any of the paperwork, of the regional people, the national people, anything as a response to the failed test purchase. I understand the criticism on the day of the failed test purchase, absolutely 100%. I believe the response to the failed test purchase was quite comprehensive and was quite detailed. And I believe, as far as we were concerned, and obviously I used the royal we thought that everybody locally had met, we'd spoken, we'd dealt with the necessary issues back then. And we obviously, you know, there would have been ongoing issues, ongoing checks, ongoing this, but we were very much, to answer the question, to stop waffling, yes, we knew at the time, and we absolutely responded accordingly to what happened at the time.
But it just appears that you're blaming the staff in the shop at the time.
For the failed test purchase?
Or for the lack of escalation.
Well, yeah, I mean, the lack of escalation, one member of staff was contacted, and he had the manager, he was responsible for escalating it, and he didn't escalate it. I mean, I don't know who else we could blame for him not picking up the phone and not sending an email, as he should have done, to the relevant structures within his company. He solely didn't escalate something that clearly should have been escalated. The guy who failed the test purchase had been trained and signed something to say they'd been trained. They'd been through their training, but when they answered the question, they said, I'm not sure, I think so. The training was comprehensive. There's nothing wrong with the training, but if the person didn't understand it or failed to comprehend what was being said or shown on the video and then signed it, it's not necessarily the training. If somebody transpires in hindsight, doesn't understand it or doesn't seem to take on board the incident log or that side of the training. The training took place. That person was trained, but when asked, they didn't seem to remember what had happened in the training, which was obviously a failing.
Thank you. All done. Panel members, do you have any questions?
I noticed that, the person who sold underage was immediately dismissed. I can't see who actually is the manager at the point.
I believe, and you guys can step in, I believe at the time there wasn't a permanent manager at the time of the failed test purchase. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Sarah Mahoney, who was the DPS, was multi-siting her own store and that store, so she was looking after 2 stores for us at that point.
Does this mean, the question I asked earlier to Mr. Ashton, does this mean that Mr. Felgate was left alone in this store by himself?
I don't know for certain on that day, but I think that would be highly unlikely because he was a colleague and not a supervisor in charge. So very rarely would a colleague be left on their own in the store, if ever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Really, we need to get to the bottom of why this happened, and I'm focusing on the training, the techniques of the training. We hear it's written and videos, so it presumably happens at home and the guy isn't supervised when he does it. So if you could go into a bit of detail on that, and whether you test people afterwards to check that they've done it, rather than watching telly at the same time, and have you changed it since this happened? Thank you.
I can answer that question. So it's not as such videos, and it is a comprehensive e-learning system that we run. So it's electronic learning. Every piece of learning is designed. It does contain videos, but it also contains information where you are constantly tested as you're going through the module. So prompts will come up and ask you to click the right, asking you what is your response to that. At the end of each module, there is a full test, and you have to pass the test to complete the module. So you cannot complete the module or be signed off unless you pass that test. If you fail it, you have to restart the module again, and you go through it until you complete. But the set of questions at the end will change, so it won't be the same questions each time.
Thank you. Could you turn your mic on? Thank you. My only, is very similar actually. I mean, staff training at the premises was completely insufficient, obviously, to uphold the licensing objectives. So what systems have you now put in place that are different?
I can answer that question. So obviously, McCall's has been integrated into the Morrison's ways of working. So we've moved the training into Morrison's particular system that we use. So the training is going to be aligned to what Morrison's colleague would receive. We do so each new colleague will do an initial training, and then there's a bi-yearly refresher that colleagues need to undertake, and then it's all done on a comprehensive system. It's interactive, and also, as Alex alluded to, we do what we call the self-legal test purchases, just to verify that the colleagues are taking on board the training. And as Alex has said, we've passed all of the test purchases that has been done by self-legal since the field test purchase.
Could I invite Peter to sum up for me, please? That's what it says here.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to reiterate that training standards still do not have confidence that this premise will uphold the licensing objectives going forward. It is clear in our view that there was an obvious shortfalls at all levels of the business. Procedures and training of staff were inadequate, and these need to be fully addressed. Aside from the need to address training and procedures at the store, there must be a sanction for a large national well-resourced business to deter them and others from selling age-restricted products, including alcohol to children. We believe, therefore, that a 3-month suspension is a proportionate outcome in the circumstances. Further, it may also serve as a clear deterrent for other businesses who continue to sell restricted products to children in Sussex. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could I ask you to...
I may have given Mr. Green the impression that he wanted to sum up at the end, if that's what I said earlier, and I think that was your question.
Do you want me to sum up, Nathan? No problem.
Is that the impression I gave earlier, that that's why you asked the question, that you felt you wanted to sum up?
Sorry, I was just checking that at some point I have an opportunity to sum up. That's all. I don't mind when. Happy to go whenever you tell me.
Now's a good time, sir.
Thank you, Nathan. John has stolen my thunder a little bit on this part of the summing up, but section 11.20 of the Home Office guidance states, in deciding which of these powers to invoke, steps taken at review, it is expected that licensing authorities should, so far as possible, seek to establish the cause or causes of the concerns that the representations identify. The remedial action taken should generally be directed at these causes and should always be no more than an appropriate and proportionate response to address the causes of concern that instigated the review. It goes on to say that a suspension of the licence for up to 3 months could impact on the business holding the licence financially and would only be expected to be pursued as an appropriate means of promoting the licensing objectives. As we've already established, the premises licence holder does not need a period of months to get its house in order here. This process started 7 months ago in February. It was completed recently. All the staff involved in the failings are gone. Everybody has been trained, retrained. The store is being monitored on a daily basis by area and regional managers and compliance teams to ensure that all the standards expected from a Morrisons store are upheld. Section 9.43 of the Section 182 guidance states that the authority's determination here should be evidence-based, something that we've seen highlighted in the well-known case of Thwaites that Nathan will know. So what is the evidence? Well, the initial cause of the review was a solitary failed test purchase, and I would contend that the failure by the then manager to respond to Trading Standards' request for information was an integral part of this. The cause, therefore, was a failure by 2 staff members at the store. Action taken by the premises licence holder once they found out about the review, comprehensive response, taking the matter very seriously indeed. Both staff members involved no longer at the store. All staff have had more training. All third-party test purchases have been passed. The store is being visited on a very, very regular basis by the regional management of Morrisons. As we've heard, actions taken by the committee or actions that can be taken by the committee. As an experienced committee, you will know that in serious cases, a premises licence can be revoked or suspended, especially when dealing with illegal workers or serial offenders. Another option is to do absolutely nothing, or alternatively, conditions can be added to ensure that these mistakes don't happen again. We've agreed, as we've already heard, a very, very large comprehensive list of new conditions with all of the responsible authorities who have called for the review or supported the review for these conditions to go onto the licence. The management involved in the failure to escalate the request have gone. The store's house is already in order. How would imposing a suspension of the store's premises licence promote the licensing objectives? Case law is clear. Licensing is not to be used as a form of punishment. I conclude by thanking the committee for its time, and I respectfully suggest to the committee that imposing all of the conditions onto the premises licence as agreed with the responsible authorities is a reasonable and proportionate response to the cause of this review. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
The committee is going to retire now to another room to make their decision to discuss what they've heard today. Following that discussion, they will either come out and provide you with their decision and reasons, or they may come out and provide you with just their decision with reasons to follow in writing in due course. There is a 21-day appeal window following receipt of that, the reasons and the outcome. All parties are in a position to appeal that decision if they so wish. I don't think there's anything else to add to that at the moment, so unless anyone has any burning questions before we leave, or any comments they wish to make at the end, I'll be more than happy to take them. Mr. Green.
Can I just ask an obvious question, because I've done this enough times? Are you saying that we're okay to kind of hang around somewhere, reception outside, and somebody will come and get us, John? Or...
Yeah, more than
we're
happy
okay
to
here,
stay
right?
here,
All right,
outside,
okay.
fresh
Just I'll
air,
check.
do as you wish. Yes. No announcement will be made without you present. We'll find you, no worries.
Welcome back. We have our decision. Allegations by trading standards have been established, but the premises licence holder does not argue the facts. Premises licence holder says that the failing is in relation to management. And based on the evidence by trading standards officer, the seller clearly didn't understand the training he had received only 2 weeks prior. So it is the public licence holder's responsibility to ensure that the training given is sufficient to promote the licensing objectives. We do not believe the training was adequate, especially as prior warning was given in August 22 that a test visit would occur. But given that you have agreed to amend the conditions as requested, and your training systems now appear much improved, based on your new conditions and chronology you have supplied, we cannot justify suspension or revocation on this occasion. But should there be further instances, you are more likely to receive a suspension or revocation of your licence. That is our decision.
Forgive me, the parties will be written to within the next 5 working days with all the details of the decision and, of course, your right to appeal. Thank you.